Hey guys, welcome back to Finance for Firefighters. Today we're going to talk about how to read your paycheck. I'll use some examples from some folks that I work with, so your paychecks will probably look a little bit different, but most of the content should be pretty much the same. And the main point I make for this, and the reason I put an episode together for this, is that our payroll makes tons of errors. They make errors all the time. I'm sure that yours does the same kinds of things. Because we're different than most of the employees through either the city or through the county that we work with, because of our even just our regular schedule, the fact that we have overtime, things like that, make their mistakes very, very frequent. Also, the fact that we have a lot of these things are built on service time or educational incentives and things like that that tend to change as things go on, and they're different for a lot of folks. If you're a lateral or if you have experience in other places, things like that, you may qualify or not qualify for certain things that other folks do. So today we're going to talk about how to read your paycheck. I'll take you line by line through a bunch of that kind of stuff so that this way you catch errors and you save yourself thousands of dollars over your career by just being thorough and checking it every time instead of just looking at the number that you bring in that goes in your bank account. Your paycheck isn't just a deposit, it's a story. It tells the story of your financial plan. So we're going to dig through it and go through every piece of it so that you know exactly what your financial plan looks like right now. Okay, so for your different paychecks, again, yours may look different than ours, but the paychecks typically have things broken up in different sections, and it's done in a way because a lot of it's computer modeled, so it's not super easy for us to see, but it's easier on the payroll side for them to work through the entire thing. So for ours, on the left-hand side, talks about all of the earnings that we have. So we'll go through each one of those line by line. So the first earning we have is regular 112. That is how they specify for us the work schedule that we work. We work a 56-hour work week, and we're paid every 2 weeks. So regular 112 is 56 times 2. It's 112, 112 hours. This gets confusing because our hourly rate is actually different on our salary schedule. We never work 56 hours in a week. We either, or even a pay period, we never work 112 hours. We either work 96 hours or we work 120 hours. We're on a 2-4 schedule. So because of that, you have to do a couple conversions to make sure that you're getting paid exactly what you're supposed to be getting paid. So if we look at that, the easiest conversion for us is basically checking your math and making sure that you're put in the correct amount per pay period. So we'll take a look at an example of the hourly rate worked here. So this firefighter worked the 112-hour rate that they were paid at. You take the rate that you're paid on your pay scale, multiply that by 96, and you divide it by 112, and that would convert it to what the hourly rate is that you're supposed to have been paid for that will show up on the salary schedule. Same thing, if this pay period was a 120-hour pay period, you would just take that same hourly rate that you got paid times the 120 divided by 112, and it would convert it over to the correct one on our salary schedule. Okay, so the next one down below that is OT 1.5. That one, SAF, basically just means your normal overtime that you've been working. It's paid at time and a half for us. You folks may be different, but for the most part, time and a half is pretty standard. Shows the total amount of hours for that overtime, the current amount you got paid for that, and then the year-to-date for all the overtime you got. The next one below is overtime 1.5, and then AOWD. For us, that's apparatus operator work down. So this paycheck is a captain's paycheck, and it shows that this person worked 24 additional hours as a driver. We're able to work down. The line below that is FLSA regular. So because we are firefighters and we work more than a 40-hour work week, FLSA is Fair Labor Standards Act. It's basically federal overtime for working more than our 10 days in a month. So FLSA regular would be your low cycle FLSA that you work. Standard, if you don't take any time off, you're going to be earning normal amounts that are slightly above it. It's federal overtime you get, if depending on how the counter works out. The one below that is FLSA PERS. So FLSA PERS is the same thing. It's the FLSA, except for federal during the high cycle is how they label this for us. Those are your high cycle ones, right? And you'll talk about more senior guys working this during their last 1 to 3 years. If you work additional FLSA during that period of time, you can actually increase your PERS amount because the calculation doesn't include the overtime you worked during your last 1 to 3 years to get your last highest year. But if you work your normal FLSA high cycles, you actually will inflate your pension when you retire. For us below that is vacation. So this is amount of, if you used vacation during this time, and say you took, instead of working 120 hours, you took 24 hours off, it would show 24 hours of vacation subtracted from there. They basically are charging you for that so that you can have the time off instead of paying you for it. Below that is comp time taken. We have comp time. So if you work an overtime somewhere else and instead of taking it as pay, you can take it in comp time, you'd have a bank to draw from that works functionally the same way as vacation does. Next below that is UB Fire Paid. So that's Union Time Bank. So if you were off for a union event, you'd have Union Time Bank on that part. Same way that vacation or comp time would be subtracted, except that instead of being subtracted from your account, it'd be subtracted from the union's account. Uniform, below that is your uniform allowance. So we have it in our contract where we get a certain amount for paying for our uniforms because it's required for our job. CSP Fire is continuous service pay. So in our contract, we have continuous service pay. The longer you're there, you build up percentages based on your years of service for employee retention and keeping senior folks there. Holiday Fire, for us, it's 5.77% because we work portions of holidays because of the 24-hour shift. Let's say that you got off Christmas morning. Well, you worked 8 hours of Christmas, right? So instead of getting small amounts of holidays that you only work because the holidays affect the rest of our schedule, we just say instead of getting paid more on the holidays, you just get paid 5.77% all the time to account for all the holidays we have in our contract. 7.5% P and then EIP. That's employee incentive pay or education incentive pay. So we have education incentives. So if this particular firefighter has a higher education incentive pay because they've gone through certain requirements that our contract requires for that. And then not listed here is something called alternative benefits because this firefighter doesn't have it, but we have alternative benefits. And this is basically if the spouse of that firefighter works and they have medical insurance, our firefighter is able to get compensated by the city for not having the city pay for our medical. They basically say, yeah, I don't want medical on the city's end. I don't want the city to pay for it. My spouse has it. My spouse will pay for it. And since the city's saving money by not paying for another employee to be on medical insurance, they compensate our employees for that. And then that amount varies. It goes up from single would be the lowest amount. Let's say you hire somebody who's under the age of 26 and they're with their parents or something. They'd have insurance through their parents. If it's just you and your spouse, then that'd be two people, and then up to two dependents on top of it, the amounts increase. Okay, now let's go over to the deduction side. So first deduction here is FICA Med. So FICA is federal, basically your federal Medicare and Social Security. We don't pay Social Security because we have pensions. So ours is carved out slightly less than that 7.65 I've talked about in other episodes. But the Medicare basically is taken out of our check for here. So we pay a certain percentage and then the employer pays a certain percentage. So EE for us is our portion of it, and then ER is the employer's portion of it. So our portion of this is 1.45% times whatever you made. So the more you work, the more you make, the more you pay into it. It's a percentage. And then anything above 200,000 adds an additional 0.9%. So everything below 200 grand is 1.45%, and then anything above that is 1.45% plus the 0.9% above that. So it gets a little more difficult. They may slightly overcharge you if you work a bunch of overtime during that period, but that's part of what factors into you getting return at the end of the year. Below that is medical. So this is, you can see here for us, this is a great benefit we have. We don't pay medical insurance. Our employer does. So here we pay nothing. And then same thing year to date here. And then on the last end, the ER, the employer is paying the entire medical insurance. So that's part of the trade-off of the alternative benefits. The firefighters that have the alternative benefits through a spouse, the employer is not paying that. The spouse's employer is. So because the employer is saving money, they pass it along to the employee, and that's a good benefit as part of our contract that we have. Below that, Delta Dental. This is just your dental insurance. Same thing. Employee pays nothing. Employer pays it. Vision is your vision care. Employer pays that. Employee pays nothing. And then Viva Fire below that. The employee here pays $50 a paycheck, and then the employer pays $23 and change a paycheck. Below that is deferred comp regular. So this is how much the employee is paying per pay period. And then the employer is paying nothing for deferred comp. Deferred comp is the same thing as your 457. Below that, you've got 401A. So this is two different categories. 401A, 15 under, and then 401A, 15 over. The under and over is just the years of service. We have this tagged to years of service. A 401A is effectively the same thing as a 457, except that only the employer can pay into it. The employee can't. So deferred comp here, the employee is paying into it, the employer is not. This is a negotiated thing we have in our contract where the employer is paying in a certain portion of it depending on years of service. This person has more than 15 years of service, so the city is paying in a certain amount. Below that is a different amount based on the contract. FIT is federal income tax. Firefighter paid this pay period, total amount this firefighter is paid. SIT is state income tax, so the amount of state income tax pay period, amount for the entire year so far. Below that is PERS. Below that, survivor benefits. So this is another benefit we have through PERS. Small fraction we pay into it, which is other benefits we can get into at a later date. Medical expense reimbursement plan. The 11 to 20 is this firefighter is between that 11 to 20 range. So the amount they pay towards MERP goes here, and then the total amount they paid right here for the year so far. Same thing here, MERP 15P, so above 15 years. This is the employee is not paying anything. This is the employer side of this. This is another negotiated part of the contract, the 170.39. And then below that is PERS UAL. This is PERS unfunded accrued liability. So this is another bill that the employer gets from PERS to pay. The employee pays nothing in this part, but the employer pays quite a bit on this one, the 3255.82. Next one below that is workers' comp. So employee pays nothing during that part, but every pay period, the employer pays this. And this is basically to have that employee covered under workers' comp. Below this for us, we have dues. So that's union dues here. This is the amount per pay period, the amount so far for the year. Below that is food money. So for us, we pull food money out similar to dues. It's automatically taken out, and then it's put into separate checking accounts for each station and shift. So instead of having a kitty where whoever's in charge of cooking goes out and goes shopping and has it, ours is actually taken out of our paychecks and then put into checking accounts that we use for our all our food money. And then total amount for this is, here's the total amount of deductions for this firefighter for that pay period, total amount of deductions they've had for the entire year. Same thing for the city's end, same thing for the city's end. And then down here below is the deposits. So this firefighter has two different accounts. The first one has $1,900 going to Wells Fargo. And then the balance of it goes to a separate bank account. So talking before about the strategic use of your paychecks, if you have a flat amount going to a certain account that covers the majority of your bills and the excess of that goes towards savings or investments, this is how you sort of automatically save it on your own. You can set this up through payroll to have the employer put a certain amount into the first check or first account, and then the balance going to a different account. So this is another great way of automatically saving your money. If Wells Fargo is the majority of what this firefighter uses to do most of their expenses, well, that stuff's already carved out there. They don't have to worry about it. Once that money's gone, they have nothing else to spend. And then the other balance of this is money that's going in there for automatic savings or investments or other kinds of things. Okay, so we went through a bunch of stuff and showed exactly what the paycheck has on it. So we're gonna go through a step-by-step process of a great way for you to go through it to make sure that you're getting paid what you're supposed to be getting paid. Okay, step one, grab your last 3 pay stubs and go through them line by line, confirming that you are getting paid what you should be getting paid based on your contract. Step number 2, check your math. So that formula I gave you before, make sure that your amount you're getting paid matches your salary schedule, right? So we never work 112 hours during a pay period. We either work 96 or we work 120. Yours may be slightly different than that, but for us, we never work the amount they're getting paid. So it has to actually get converted differently. So make sure you convert it back and you have that. For us on our self-service portal, there's a spot you can go into that actually shows your paycheck calculation on there too. So if you want to make it even easier on yourself, log into that and it'll show your hourly rate. As long as your hourly rate matches your years of service, great. For us, years of service is not years of service, but our steps are, you get step 1 is when you're brand new at your spot. And then you get bumped up to step 2 after 6 months, step 3 after an additional 6 months, so a total of a year. And then step 4 after an additional year, so again, 2 years. And then step 5, or the top step for us, would be after an additional 1.5 years. So that 2 years plus the 1.5 years equals 3.5 years, you should be topped out. So as long as your math is set up correctly for that, and you're matching what it is on your salary schedule, you should be good to go. Step number 3, check your deductions. Make sure that all of those things line up with what your contract says. Step number 4, review year-to-date totals. In that example we went through, that firefighter is doing $1,000 per pay period, right? And the amount of per pay period to go into the deferred comp. And the amount of that should track what's actually going into the account. So double check your account, make sure that that money is actually going in there, and that you are on track to make whatever savings or investment goals that you have. If you find errors, spot the errors, and then go up to the chain of command to get those errors sorted out. The longer you wait, the more difficult it is to prove that it was an error and to actually get your money back to you. A couple little notes or frequently asked questions. Why does overtime get taxed higher? Well, if you look at the other episode before, we talked about different tax brackets. You actually will get taxed. It's basically the way that they do it is you're getting taxed at that snapshot of what you're making. So if you worked 3 or 4 overtime shifts, it looks like you're making, 4 or 5 times more than you actually do for the annual amount. You don't do that all the time. You only do it in small little snapshots. So they'll tax you more up front for that, depending on your deductions, and then you'll get that money back at the end of the year. The amount you're taxed is at the entire end of the year when you do those tax returns, okay? So it looks like you're getting taxed more, and you may be getting taxed a little more now, but in the end, it all sort of evens out. That's where the refunds come in. How do I know if I'm maxing out my deferred comp? Well, the amount right now is $23,500 if you're below the age of 50. So if you're looking at your year-to-date totals and your amount per pay period, you should be able to see that in there. Okay, so the example we had before, person was doing $1,000 a pay period. Well, they're going to hit their maximum at 23 and a half paychecks, right? So at the 24th paycheck, they should already be 23,500, and then for us, it automatically stops. So the last 2 paychecks for that firefighter, they're not going to have any more deductions taken out because they've hit the cap. If you're over the age of 50, you can do that 7,500 additional per year, or the other one we've talked about in a different episode is the special catch-up contribution, where you can effectively double the amount you're putting into that. So it's closer to $47,000 a year currently. So if you're in that spot and you're really focused on doing that, run the numbers out, make sure your paycheck matches what your plan is. Who do I talk to about errors? Well, same thing you would do in the firehouse, right? You go to the senior firefighter, you go to your operator, up to your captain, use it at the smallest level possible, and then work the problem up from there. Do not go straight to your battalion chief or straight to the, definitely for us, don't go straight to payroll. You're going to get yourself in trouble because they do this all the time and they do make mistakes, but there are plenty of things that affect our paychecks that we might not know about, right? So they send emails out for us frequently where they say, hey, payrolls due early or pay period ends early. For us, if Thanksgiving or different holidays when the city's closed, they'll end up shifting some of those days earlier. So even if you worked an overtime or you took a time off during the normal pay cycle that you get paid, that maybe get reflected either earlier or later. So that's why I say check it with the folks who have experience seeing it, and then look for errors and try to troubleshoot yourself before you shoot it up the chain of command. Your paycheck is not just about the net that you bring home or the amount of money coming in there. It's your financial snapshot. It shows your entire financial plan and your roadmap. So learn how to read it, learn how to navigate it, and learn how to plan for the future. Thanks for joining me on Finance for Firefighters. Same as always, thumbs up if you like it, comments below, subscribe, pass this along to other folks. Hope you guys have a good shift. I'll see you on the next one.